Hello, Alan. Welcome to MetalKaoz. And let me start right away. I know that you have a busy schedule. The obvious question, the album's title question. So is this a question or a statement or something in between?
It's both, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a question to the listener. It's a question to it's my question, I guess, to everybody on some level. It's also I guess it's more a question than a statement because it's sort of open-ended. It's a bit cryptic.
Yeah.
But it can be seen as some kind of statement as well, but I think it's more of a question.
So, and I'm sure you get this question a lot. I hope this is not a statement related to the band.
Well, who knows? I don't think so. We don't. That's not really how we're thinking. But 10 albums in, you never know what happens. It's not really about the band. Although I guess I deliberately called it that so as to so people would ask the question.
This is the way I like to see this, is that we have to consider always that at some point, everything we live will end. We will end. So it's about time that we start thinking about the now and about how we interact with other human beings, because frankly, I don't think we have improved at all. Quite the contrary.
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by improved. Human nature is kind of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, improved is, I think we're under some illusion that this is only what civilization is going to do or can offer us, just constant improvement. But it certainly isn't constant improvement. It's just the chaotic process of civilization. For some people, a very small percentage of people, it's I suppose they would say it is going very, very, very well at the moment. And for others, well, many people less so. It's look, the history tries to teach us linear lessons, or we try and take linear lessons from history, but that's not really how history works. I mean, the process of civilization and where we are in the world is kind of chaotic. It's unpredictable. I don't know if that was the question, but
no, it was not exactly the question, but I like where you're going, especially with you mentioning linearity. There is no linearity.
No.
Chaos, as we say, the entropy is constantly increasing.
Yeah, I mean, this what they call it, this black ball theory, which is that the process of civilization and technology keeps, if you can imagine putting your hand into this sort of bag full of balls. Some are black, some are white, some are gray. And for a while, we've had 100, 120 years of, picking out this white balls that are kind of, indicate progression. But then again, you split the atom, you create the nuclear weapon. You've pulled out a black ball, you've pulled out something that can, fundamentally destroy civilization. And here, who's to say that now with the process of AI and all this kind of stuff, that isn't another black ball? I'm sort of interested in these mathematical, philosophical theories of where we are as a society. But that's not really what the album is about. I mean, the title, How It Ends, is sort of, as I said, a question about. The album is really about the concept. If there's a loose concept, it's about liberty. Mm-hmm. It's about our relationship to freedom and all those kind of things. It's inspired by the last 5 years, but also looks back at history, looks back at the romantic figures throughout history who've inspired us. Some have been forgotten about. If To the Nameless Dead was about the movement of empires, this is about the people within those empires who resisted, who rebelled, who fought back against authoritarianism, not just from Ireland, but from many small countries. And so the album is kind of revolves around the theme of what do we do to fight for liberty? Is this how it ends, with your gun in hand, to fight for the cause of liberty? That's kind of the loose. It's like an underdog album. It's like the album of the underdog. It's like it's a resistance record. It's a kind of defiant, angry record, more than maybe the last few.
Right. And although we kind of digressed about talking about how we progress, quote unquote, but still everything is related again to freedom. However, you mentioned history. It's interesting to note that we have seen this stuff happening in the past, but we don't actually learn from history, right?
No. Which stuff do you mean? No.
I mean, we have seen that how some countries can suppress some people, some parties, some political parties even, but
Sure.
it's happening again. No,
Yeah,
no.
of course. I mean, look, I'm in my own country, they passed a bill, a hate speech bill, criminalizing intent, that they can now basically take your computer and say, well, you have something on your computer that we think you might use to distribute it. I mean, that's one step away from thought crime. And useful idiots in the government and people around it move along with it. Then we're changing our concept of guilt to be it used to be innocent till proven guilty. This new hate speech bill would say you're guilty until you prove you're innocent. You've got to prove lack of intent. This is insane. This is every authoritarian regime in history has tried to declare opposition to what it states as hateful. It's we're lurching towards authoritarianism in the West, and we're taking for granted things like freedom of speech, freedom of movement, bodily autonomy, the freedom to put something or not put something into your body. This kind of stuff, protected under the Nuremberg Code. We're removing things like this. I think it's because governments can see in the next 10 years there's going to be chaos. When everybody has the ability on their phone to create completely realistic deep fake press conferences by any politician in the world. They're anticipating a chaotic decade, and they want new rules to clamp down on everything. So that's what's incoming. That's what I see, and that's my dark worldview. But that's my view of the world has always been dark.
Oh, yeah, of course. And it reminds me of, I think it's a Philip Dick novel.
Philip K. Dick, yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it's bizarre that even though we have so many means of expressing ourselves, expressing our thoughts, for whatever we think about, we can express ourselves, but still everybody gets polarized, everybody gets angry with each other. So
well, it's because it's like we're living in a kind of a moment in history where we've kind of replaced faith and religion and the old structures of moralism. We're busy tearing them all down, and we're replacing them with kind of digital boundaries. But there's a new orthodoxy, a new religion to it, and we're being invited to. It's very strange. We're being invited in a digital world to think about our enemies as binaries. You're good or you're evil. Are you on the right side of history or the wrong side of history? Nobody wants context or nuance, because there isn't room for that in this new kind of heretical world whereby everyone who you disagree with is a Nazi. What do they call it? Godwin's law, that people who don't understand history inevitably always compare anything they disagree with to Nazism. We're in a very strange period of history, and the reality is that I think an awful lot of it is created by state and government, technocracy, trans multinational corporations who understand very clearly that if they divide and conquer people, you have to divide them to conquer them. And so they've created these, little short of being psyops, which is the culture war, to have people tearing into each other for really quite mundane and meaningless things.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than people seeing how much they have in common, they see their enemy now as lower than human. And we know what happens in human history when you see the other as not human anymore. This is when we start to do things like building fucking camps, and which you saw during lockdown of the pandemic. You saw people going, we must build camps to send the unvaccinated. Really? Camps? I see. So unfortunately for me, this ties into my dark view of human nature, which hasn't changed at all. As soon as lockdown started, I said, watch now, this is going to happen for years. And people were like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, I just watch. I know more or less everything I predicted kind of happened. Because when you understand elements, not all, but you understand some elements of the machine that's, that sort of hidden hand or whatever you want to call it. And not to be conspiratorial, because I think the concept of conspiracy theory is they're just two words people throw around because they don't want to understand something, or they don't have the time to understand something, yeah, you may look out the window today and go, oh, the sun is shining, it's a good day. And that's also true. So for people on the furthest fringes of the argument, they have to try and come and meet in the middle to find compromise and stop calling each other the most extreme things. Otherwise, I think we're headed for a very dangerous decade.
Yeah. And even though, as you said, some people kind of put us in this situation, I don't think we are doing anything to avoid that. We are making it very easy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you study the mathematics of human nature, you probably will understand that there are nodes and structures of behavior that are highly predictable. And if you suggest, people are suggestible, if you suggest to them that it's in your safety, in your interest to keep you locked in your house for 2.5 years, give them the right amount of propaganda and fear, the nudge, they 60-70% of people will accept it, because they have to have faith. They have faith in institutions, and they don't believe those institutions are corrupt. But this is changing. More and more people can see through this. But still, there's a body politic of people who will support very extreme measures if they believe that it's been done in the right name. But we know from history, this can be very dark and extreme stuff. So yeah, we're irrational animals,
Yes. However,
yes,
we have however, we have a new album coming out.
Yeah, we have a new album.
So what was the drive, or even the inspiration to start writing the new Primordial album?
Well, maybe last September, October, we really began to work very hard. We said, okay, let's set the studio for whatever it was, April. Gives you a goal for 4, 5, 6 months. Trust in your instinct, trust in your songwriting ability. Let's go. And we just kicked it all into overdrive. And like lots and lots of songs come out. You'll notice there's 10 songs on it instead of 8 or 7. Songs are a bit shorter, a bit more dynamic, a bit more, impactful. And yeah, it just all began to, take off then very quickly. And yeah, it came together. It came together quickly. And then the recording was very easy, and everyone worked very, very hard on the recording. So
who did the production? Did you do the production?
Well, it depends what you mean by production. I mean, Chris Fielding, the guy who made To the Nameless Dead, he engineered it. And we engineered it. We made it in a studio on the outskirts of Dublin, kind of in the mountains. We all kind of produce it, so to say, together, as in, the amps and the overall sound and structure and tone. That's kind of my thing as well, getting involved in things like, some of the technical stuff on one side. But no, it's kind of produced by everybody. But yeah, Chris engineers and produces this as well. We did it in about 2 weeks, maybe. So it's came together quickly, and it's all done analog, live, no tempo maps, no auto tune, nothing like all that kind of stuff,
Old school stuff, right?
Yeah,
quickly and get it down in a live manner. I love it.
Yeah.
And when did Mick leave Primordial? Before the band started working on the new song?
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, like, Mick is taking a break. If he wants to come back in a year, or if 2 years, I mean, he could do. He was with us 20 years, so I think he just got burnt out with traveling and airports and people and another festival field and waking up after 2 hours sleep. And I think he sort of fell out of love with it, and that can happen to people.
Oh, of course.
They fall out of love with all of the moving and traveling, and also the just like every day there's just stuff for me to do. There's like WhatsApp messages incoming, there's interviews, there's just stuff. Now, Mick has nothing like that amount of stuff, but I think he just wanted the phone to stop pinging with messages, with gigs, and so hopefully he comes back and plays some music in a couple of years. Who knows? But people are going to have to get used to the fact that the band might look a bit different on stage now. So but we had a good run. where for 20 odd years, the main core of the band was every time you saw Primordial, okay, maybe there was one person being replaced by our friend Jerry, but it's mainly always been at least 4 out of the 5 of us usually, you know. But that might change. But well, you know, it's bands move through different periods.
Oh yeah, of course. As I like to say, bands are living organisms.
Yeah, they are. They're like family and
Correct.
you know, living organisms. Yeah, and sometimes you know, I suppose yeah, it changes.
Yeah. So as you said in the live setup, I imagine you will find a second guitarist to step in, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, I think at the moment we'll just keep it as being the 4 of us, and then just add whoever may come in on those those other shows as they come up, you know. So yeah.
Traditionda is a cover, really, of
yeah, it sort of is. It's nothing to do with me. This is Kieran's song, or Kieran wanted to make a cover of this traditional song, and he just did it. Yeah, it's cool. It's a really nice moment in the record. I think people are really going to enjoy that, and the call to Cernunnos for being kind of different, very, very sort of pagan, sort of very Irish feeling to them, you know. So yeah, I can't really answer much about that song. That's Kieran's stuff, you know.
Cool. However, you mentioned Call to Cernunnos, and I think Victory Has 1,000 Fathers also have some Celtic stuff. However, the rest of the album is more based on aggression, is more
I'm not the guy who really likes traditional music that much. I respect it and I like some of it. I'm not into jigs and reels. I'm not really into that. It's not my thing. I'm more like the total heavy metal guy. It's sometimes a bit too jolly for me. But it has its place, you know, and who doesn't like Thin Lizzy Black Rose, of course, and Emerald and stuff. And, you know, we're obviously, there's some Rory Gallagher in there somewhere or other. And, you know, the Irish thing, that's Kieran and Paul's and Simon's stuff. And yeah, it adds a great flavor to the record, and it adds more dynamics, and it does have this Irish feeling to it, which of course the record has that. But as you say, the other songs are a bit more, there's some darker ones and it's a bit more aggressive, most of it, and there's also some real gloomy you know, songs as well. So it's kind of got, I mean, every band says it, but it's kind of got a bit of everything, really, doesn't it, you know?
Yeah, and even if you said that those traditional stuff maybe sound quote unquote a bit happy, however, they do create a contrast. And
yeah, no, there's no doubt that they do.
What about the album cover artwork? Where did this come from?
I was looking to I was thinking about what to make as the cover, and I had one kind of a different idea already in my head. And then we were sitting in this pub that was near to where the studio is, and I was looking at this poster on the wall, and originally it was a farmer with a sheath of wheat in his hand.
Okay.
And it just said forward underneath it. And in Ireland we don't have much of these. I like these Soviet propaganda posters. I'm really into this kind of imagery, a bit like Laibach or something, but I didn't want it to be like Laibach. And I just saw that and I thought, that's the fucking cover, man. And I just took a photo of it. It's from 1920s. It's an old propaganda poster for Irish farming. And I just put a gun in the farmer's hand instead of the the sheath of wheat.
Was this
so that's kind of where it came from, yeah.
Was this your way of saying, I'm trying to be careful, take action, not with guns though, take action with your life, something like that?
No, that's not really what it's about. It's really, it states, I think it says, it's asking the question, is this how it always ends?
Okay.
Is this how people are pushed so far that this is how they revolt or rebel? Or look, I mean, it's not meant to be taken exactly literally. It's a nuanced concept, yes. But it's I just wanted something very striking and very different to your average metal looking record. I wanted it to be very, very like an old propaganda poster, and that's exactly what it looks like.
I kind of regret that question because, you know, these days, oh my goodness, people will have, anyways.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. It's not me asking anybody to do anything.
You have a podcast, and it's
Yeah.
it's very interesting because you have history. You talk about history and
Yeah.
how it's relevant nowadays. So, what do you take from that? I mean, what it does this podcast scratches?
Well, I'd started it during lockdown as a way of coping with lockdown. Then it just sort of took on a life of its own, and now I've quite a lot of listeners. I mean, every day, a few hundred. When the podcast comes out, a few thousand. On that day, I think I have 350,000 listens so far, something more than that. It's hard to grow on YouTube, but on the podcast figures are really, really big, strong. There's an audience there for the fact that I talk about literally anything. I think the thing that, as I said, the last one was about the Haitian Revolution. I talk about Afghanistan, about the history of elements of the Soviet Union. I might do a podcast about Aleister Crowley, about H.P. Lovecraft, or just ramble about heavy metal, tell some tour stories. I mean, it's just kind of all over the place, and so it suits my brain, it suits my way of doing things, and people seem to like it. And also, a lot of people are quite surprised at how even-handed it is. When I present some element of politics, I try and hold the middle ground and present some elements of what I think is coming from the other side. But also, like say, when the hate speech bill, a lot of people don't like the idea that when you say, look, this is Orwellian, hate speech is from Orwell, 1984. And unless you know that, then, sometimes I take a very strong point on some things that I see as the principle of the podcast is freedom of speech. Skepticism is the only rational perspective, and we should always forget that. And it's freedom of speech, and it's also trying to present a rational, look at the world, but also not to give in to the extremities of either side,
Right.
and not to presume that the bad faith argument of everybody from the other side. So I try and put some positions that I would perhaps disagree with to put the color from the other side, and that the world is gray. The world is not as polarized as people think it is, and nor is it good or evil. It's a chaotic mess in the middle. So I enjoy it, and it's good because it's not like posting something online and then getting lots of comments. I mean, I get some comments, but generally I just get to speak, and it's I enjoy doing it. I could do with it being a bit bigger, but that means I would have to be like a presenter on YouTube, and I don't really know whether I want to be like a YouTuber.
Well, you never know. However, it will be nice, and this is just an idea, to start some segments talking about the band and how you started, and even stories from the tour. Oh man, I'm sure there are some very good stories.
Yeah, there are. I mean, there's lots of things. See, it's not really about. I don't want it to make it the Primordial podcast.
Correct. Yeah, I understand.
But there are elements of that kind of stuff. But it's true. I have a podcast here waiting to be released about a tour in Finland we did that was just crazy from like 10, 12 years ago. And yeah, man, why not?
Paradise Lost tour.
Oh yeah.
And when should we be expecting Primordial in the States?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to play some gigs after Maryland Death Fest. So
okay.
Finally, it's been difficult. I think people know the reasons why it's hard to tour the States. I mean, the main reason is it's like, look, Primordial's not a professional band, and we all have jobs and things to do. So we can't just go back and forwards touring Europe, touring the States, touring. We don't have flexibility like that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, man. You too. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.